So coming to uh, data hiding is restricting the access to the class members. So as we have already discussed, we have certain access specifiers in object-oriented programming, which are public, protected, and private data. Public, any class which is class members which are public are accessible to the outside world, and protected class members are accessible by the only to the derived class members, and private data is not accessible outside the class. So that is how you restrict class members access outside the class. And message passing, objects communicate with one another by sending and receiving data to each other. So as you see here, there are several objects, 4 objects A, B, C, D, and they have methods and data to be manipulated. So whenever an object A communicates with object B through message passing, it tries to manipulate the data which is in the object B. Like you have 4 classes which are communicating to each other. 4 classes communicate to each other using 4 objects. That is, class A has object A, class B has object B, class C has object C, and class D has object D. And these methods and data members are modified using the objects. And other classes try to manipulate the data within the other manipulate data of other classes using message passing. They pass the data or the messages through the uh, message passing. We also have in IPC several IPC mechanisms when you elaborate the same to processes and threads. Here it is simple when we talk about objects, but when you write an application, you have several processes and you have several threads within a process. So these processes and threads communicate with each other using IPC mechanisms. So IPC mechanisms, in the sense, we have several mutexes, semaphores, message passing. We have several communication mechanisms, methods through which the threads are updated with the manipulated data or any updated data members uh, through the IPC communication. So this is called as inter-process communication. That's in depth when you deal with the processes and threads. So here it is simple. When you talk about objects, it's just communicating and receiving the data through message passing. Right. So let me take you through the small program. So I'm writing a class, base class. So every class ends with a semicolon. So by default, if I have a member here, it is a private data member. Right. Okay. If I want to access it outside the class, I use a public data member. Say I'm using like that. So this is a public data member. Also, I could have a protected data member, any num. So I'll have a so what we have seen is earlier we have created we have calculated area of the rectangle. So here I'm trying to do the same. So I have length and breadth as the data members. defined and area as the member function. Right? So this is a simple program of creating an calculating an area of a rectangle. So now I will create an object. I'll instantiate this class base b. So b dot length equal to 7.0, b dot equal to 0. I'm calling the area function. Right? So I'll just run this. Yeah, R2. Std space. Okay. Yeah, it should work with the std namespace. But so let me tell you, this is how it calculates. I hope it works now. Yeah. Now I can remove this. It will directly. Yes. So this is hope this is clear. I'm simply calculating the area. I'm trying to use a class public members, the data member, and the member function. I've created an object of the class outside the class, that is in the main function, class object. So this is how I initialize the data members of the class and call the function of the class. So now we have seen the class and object. We'll talk about inheritance and the further other topics as well. We've also seen data hiding, that is how public, protected, and private works. Private, you needn't specify it. By default, the class members are private. right? If I try to access the number here, see, if I try to give, we initialize the number with the 10, it will throw me an error because it's a private number, right? It's a private within this context. Hope this is clear. So I'll take another class, which is a derived class. So as I said, you should have a semicolon here. When I say derived class, this is the way you derive a class from the base class. So this is the class derived, and it's inheriting from the base class. This class is inherited from the base class. So this is the syntax of how you use inheritance. Now, if I want to use the same area here, if I want to have the base class and the derived class, I'll just copy paste it here. So I'll write derived class. Now I have the base class object and I've calculated base class area. Now let me have a derived class object. So if I do d dot length, so this is clear. It works the same way as this worked, right? We are trying to call the derived class member function using derived class object. So we'll have, try to execute this. So we have two outputs here. We have calculated area both in the base class as well as in the derived class, right? So now we would move ahead with the polymorphism concept, which is using virtual functions. Now, if I'm having a base class pointer, I have another base class pointer, which is base pointer b2 and derived class object. Say we have this pointer pointed to derived class object, and we have this pointer b2 called the area. So here our expectation would be, since we have pointed this pointer, base class pointer to the derived class pointer, we would expect it would calculate the derived class member function. We'll execute and see if it, what it does, right? Okay. So what it's trying to do, it's calling the base class function, not the derived class function as we expected. In such cases, we use virtual keyword to implement the polymorphism. So here we have virtual keyword um, in the base class, which makes it a polymorphic class. So when we have the same function overridden in the derived class, and when the base class pointer points to the derived class object, now here it would calculate it would again print the derived class. It would call the derived class function. So before that, let me initialize once again these two. Right? So I hope you understood the use of virtual keyword, which represents the polymorphism concept that we have just gone through. So what are the real-time applications of the C++ language? We have several applications of the C++ language as it continues to grow and expand its standard library function. We have exclusive features added to it, like we can use it in GUI applications, operating systems, or the web browsers and the data management systems, and cloud computing or the distributed applications. When you say we are using it for the graphical user interface, we are using it for developing games or solving any real-time simulations with the help of C++. So we are using C++ in graphics and a design of interfaces for animations. And in operating systems like Microsoft Windows, Symbiosis, etc., these were developed in C++. Web browser, C++ has an optimal choice for programming web browsers because it has high speed. It offers a benefit of data security, as we already have discussed the C++ features like data abstraction, data hiding. So it is used in web browsers such as IE, Google Chrome, Firefox, Safari, etc. So talking about the database management systems, it has some RDBMS developed in C++ like Oracle, MySQL, IBM, and a few more. It has file handling, high speed ability, and reliability, and other features like the classes and objects that we have already discussed. So cloud computing and distribution applications, large MNCs use C++ as a tool to provide high concurrency along with the low tolerance to the hardware applications. So these are the applications of C++. Coming to the advantages and disadvantages of the OOPS concepts. The major advantages will be the code reusability, data redundancy, code maintenance, software security, and many design benefits. So whenever you try to code an application, before coding it, you don't directly jump into an application or directly develop an application. You first have various phases of it. First, we go with the design phase, requirement gathering phase, design phase, then development, then implementation and testing. All these five phases would be there, and we have certain design patterns for that, which would show relationships and interactions between the various classes and objects. When you also have certain UML concepts, when you go depth into the design patterns, you have several more to discover. You have several development ideas like well-proven, well-tested development paradigms like the design patterns, the design strategies for every problem that you come across. So it's a flexible programming language, and it is maintainable as well. So yeah, these are the advantages of OOPS concepts. Coming to the disadvantages, the major disadvantage would be the effort that we put into. Other than that, the size and speed with the improvements of the computer performance, we have made the restrictions about size and speed inconsequential. So if you talk about the size, object-oriented programs are much larger compared to the other programs. So based upon that, the space on hard drives or the floppy drives and the memory was at premium earlier days. But now those that has been reduced. So coming to the speed, as I said, the larger the program, the slower is the speed of it. The partially because of the size, it would consume more system resources. Thus finally slowing down the program. So effort that we have is, as we discussed, we have 5 stages, which is the requirement gathering, design, development, implementation, and the final testing stage. So your effort goes into all three, all 5 of them. So more time is actually spent on writing the program. So what are the various industries and job opportunities in C++? We have several industries and several job openings in C++. Like we have um, immense job market expanding over the industries like finance, Android application development, or the gaming development, virtual reality, and many more. We have companies like Google, Amazon, Flipkart, Microsoft, etc. They hire C++ professionals as well. It's a backend language for finance employees, like finance related um, industry, to execute functions related to any banking sector or the finance sector. We also have the medical industry where several micro uh, computer systems use C++ as the baseline, and desktop applications. We are moving towards C Sharp, but C++ is still common. The gaming industry especially has a high demand for performance, as C++ are used for high-end games and engines. And though as computing power increases, the efficiency is becoming less important. We have C++ applied into electronic design automation industry as well. It's well written in C++, and it requires lot, since EDA software requires a lot of calculation, C++ is a very best choice. The majorly, and it is also used in embedded systems like automotive, semiconductors, construction, like any other industry like manufacturing, etc. C++ is a common language used. So with my experience, yeah, I've worked with automotive industry where yeah, you use C++ in like in all embedded related industries like semiconductor or the medical domain or the automotive industry, semiconductors and gaming industry. All these use C++ as the major language.